So what's in the mug, my friend?
What's going on, John? The second cup numero dos of the Joe. Just excited to be here after another long night. You know, whenever you have seven or so games on a Wednesday, you got to catch them after the family goes to sleep. So, I did catch just about 90 or four. So, happy to be on. Some good things to talk about. I know Atlanta's not feeling too good. I know Seattle is probably feeling as they thought they would this Wednesday game, but ready to go, man. Ready to just take on John Nelson's questions, baby.
All right. So I know a lot of folks here have concerns. It is 7 now in a row without a win, 3 draws, 4 losses. And there were folks that were wondering, A, your thoughts on what's going on here, and then in turn, B, your thoughts about what's going on in Seattle and wondering what's going on up there from your points of view. So we'll start things on this end of the scale about your relationship with Gonzalo Pineda and the time that you saw him with Brian Schmetzer, and now they've hit this patch where they have not won in 7. What, from your observations on the left coast, what have you been looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Atlanta, a roster that is clearly more promising, more talented, more expensive than the Seattle Sounders squad. Um, but things just have not played out for Gonzalo Pineda. There has always been one thing or another that just hasn't solidified, hasn't cemented, whether it's the defensive component of it, whether it's game management. But, and not because I have a relationship with Gonzalo, and I don't want to be an apologist to, there is obviously responsibility to the coach. But I want to bring it back to the players, man. I said it in a couple of episodes before. I think any time that your DP players are underperforming, and I don't mean just on the soccer aspect, but motivationally and leadership wise, and you know, t- togetherness in general, man. I just have been very disappointed on how Thiago Almada has approached this season. He's looked like he's a little bit disinterested at times, gets easily frustrated, unable to really shine when the team needs him most, and that's what the position calls for. That's what being, the World Cup winner, the young talent goes along with it. The responsibility that if things are not going well, and if offensively you're not doing enough, and you can't put this team on your shoulders, there should be some criticism towards you. So I'm not gonna put it all on Gonzalo. I think that sure, there's a tactical component that could be better. There's the argument of, is he putting players in the position to be most successful? Um, but at the end of the day, again, I just feel like there is a certain responsibility level to Almada. I feel like on the roster build, you can let go of someone as important as Miles Robinson and not necessarily replace him with a like for like. Right now, you got Noah Kopp, who's 18 years old in that defensive back line. Luis Abram, who's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but just has not been uh, lights out defender for this Atlanta team. So all in all, I feel like it's a combination of things. And if Gonzalo Pineda does need to do something, is maybe simplifying things, maybe being asking less in terms of duties of each of these players, and trying to just get some wins, whether they're brilliant, whether they're ugly, whether they're not. I mean, if you look at the results from some of the games are part of this 7 winless streak, there have been games where things haven't gone their way, and Gigi's missed opportunities, and you've had chances in front of goal, and you've started off with the lead and you haven't been able to hold it. So um, I'm still confident that Gonzalo Pineda is a hard worker, is a student of the game, is someone that can turn it around one way or another. But there is that other face to the coin where are the players not buying in? And if players don't buy in, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are this tactical genius. If players are not bought in, then it's just not going to work.
Yeah, the players have said that they have faith in Gonzalo and what he wants to the messages that he is bringing across philosophically. So there are instances, and there are repeated instances, where the players are not locked in at 100% for a full 90 minutes, and it's in those moments where other teams take advantage and score. And this has happened repeatedly. Last night, you had the moment that started the goal for Cincinnati 7 minutes in, and it was where for a second, players shut off for whatever reason, thinking a ball is going to go out. It doesn't. Cincinnati sticks with the play. There's no whistle. Cincinnati gets to the ball. Lucho Acosta sends the ball to the back post. Kelsey heads it in. It's 1-0, and you're 7 minutes in, and you're already fighting uphill. And these moments continued to happen, but the players themselves believe in Gonzo and believe in what he's trying to put forth as a philosophy. Let me ask you this as a follow-up. How much of Gonzo comes from his time in Seattle and with Brian Schmetzer? I know that Gonzo has his own set of ideas and his own set of the book of Gonzalo Pineda. We know that he has his book, but how much of those chapters came from his time with Brian, and what did he learn from Brian that he brought with him to this head coaching gig, do you think?
I mean, he's been pretty open about the fact that one of the things that he admired most about Brian, and that he learned so much about him, was player management and understanding where they should be played at, and bringing up not just the philosophical component, but the motivational one. Um, Ironically, those are some of the things that haven't really come through easy. I love to hear that the players are backing their coach. That is part of the Brian Schmetzer playbook. Whether that's starting to fade away or not in the Brian Schmetzer era, it feels like Gonzalo Pineda early on and to this point hasn't lost the locker room. In terms of tactics, I think Gonzalo has always thought differently, and I feel like that's what was so successful in Seattle, was that Gonzalo was not a yes man when it came to Brian. He had his own ideas, had his own tactics. When Seattle played with five in the back, that was a Gonzalo Pineda initiative. So there have been things about Gonzalo Pineda that he's always had on his own, mainly the formations and concepts and soccer modules. But if he's learned anything from Brian, I think it's mainly the component of dealing with players, dealing with egos, not having a cookie cutter system for every single player. And that's why I feel like you have to give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to Gonzalo Pineda when it comes to this squad that at times just hasn't been resilient. And there is only so much you can do, right? I mean, yesterday, that goal against Lucho Acosta, feels like players turn off, right? I mean, yes, Kelsey's the one that puts it away, but Lucho's the one that gets to a ball that maybe he should never gotten to. And that winning those second balls and making sure that you're getting those out is something that players have to do individually, and that just hasn't come across.
So then it is the question from one of our folks in the Twitch pitch this morning. Is Gonzo too stubborn and not pragmatic enough? Because we've discussed philosophically where Gonzalo Pineda wants to, his solution for a 1-goal lead is a 2-goal lead. That's how he's wired. So then, like I said, someone in our Twitch pitch, one of our A-listers, is he too stubborn and not pragmatic enough? But I would say that Gonzalo knows how to read a room and a situation, but you do have your own philosophical idea as to how you want to get there at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a fair question, and I think all brilliant minds, and not to put Gonzalo in this realm of coaches that have a certain ideology and concepts like Bielsa, where they're so committed to the style of play that uh, they have a hard time changing from it. There is a level, I think, to Gonzalo's concepts that maybe at times ask too much of players, and that's why I brought that up. And maybe just being more pragmatic and getting ugly wins is something that uh, isn't part of his DNA and his thought process. That's something that, when you talk about the contrast with Brian Metzer, Brian's more on the conservative side, and he has a harder time being not conservative, not being pragmatic. Gonzalo, he's always going to want to play out of the back and always have possession and be the protagonist and have the tempo of play. And there are times where you just have to be able to switch on and off and realize, hey, this one, we're just going to bunker. We're going to be able to just earn the point, grind it out. So, yeah, I mean, there is a level of stubbornness to most coaches that are tactically gifted. And I still believe that that's Gonzalo.
Seattle now. So let's focus on the other side of the equation. Folks in the Twitch pitch are wondering what's going on with Seattle, mentioning the struggles that the Sounders are having. One name that popped up in the discussion was Jordan Morris, not being the same as he has been in years past. When you look at what's going on there with your Sounders, what is going on with your Sounders?
Yeah, I mean, they get a big win at Timbers, one that should not go unnoticed, one that provided them with some leniency going into this game, some room to rotate the entire squad against RSL, understanding that those 3 points were huge. So you still have a very inconsistent team at times. You have a roster that's being challenged and that at times doesn't seem to have the quality for certain games. So when you look at that game at Portland, the Derby, physical, you play it at Providence Park, you grind out a win. You have a guy like Raul Ruidiaz that has taken on the challenge to be the difference maker there. He puts a beautiful goal in first touch, left foot, his weak foot, if you will, puts it on a dime on a corner where there was no way that Crepeau was going to get there. So there is some sporadic moments where you're like, man, this team can get on a road. This team can absolutely make it to the playoffs. And that's, I've never doubted that. I've never doubted the fact that this Sounders team can get to the playoffs. The problem is that the expectation and what fans want is beyond that. And I just don't know if they have enough for that. The positives are that they've been able to maintain and earn and gain points here and there, where there is a draw, where there is the big win at Portland. So they're staying relevantly above water and close to that playoff line, close to a little bit beyond that. With Pedro de la Vega now looking like he will either start or feature against Vancouver coming up. There is a level of what's going to happen once he gets there. Is he that missing piece, the missing component? But against RSL, you went back and saw the fact that the depth of this roster just lacks quality. And look, we're talking about a guy like Georgie, and we talked about him last week, and it was a point of discussion around the area, around MLS in general, because he's a fun player. He is a player that beats the opponents off the dribble, good on the one-on-one, and you saw that again yesterday. But then we all go back to the quality component, and there's still a level that's not there. Musovski, as much as he's a good role player, he just isn't the guy that you want taking charge on your team. And yesterday he gets a chance in front of goal. it doesn't come off for Seattle. And when you have a team that has a hard time getting to that final end with a rotated squad, you got to put that away. Um, Albert Rusnak, it's a huge concern. Uh, Not just defensively because the press against RSL was poor, was ineffective, but on offense. If anything out of Albert Rusnak was the fact that he was going to be your 10. He was going to take that torch from Nicolas Lodero, and he has not been able to light it. He got the stick, he's got the gasoline in it, but he forgot the lighter. He just has not been a spark. He has not been good enough to put this team at a next level. So, in conclusion, I feel like Seattle as a whole has a lot of problems and not all fall on Brian Metzer. I think that there is a level of quality roster build. And Jordan Morris, going to the question, and I'll try to be concise here. Jordan Morris is in a bad form, is in a bad mental state, or just lost of confidence, where Brian Metzer has mentioned a couple of times that as a coach, it is his job to make sure that Jordan's confident, that Raul is happy and playing well. And that's where things have kind of gone off the hinges for this Sounders team, because there was so much expectation on Jordan at the 9. It didn't work. All right, you moved him to the wing where he's more comfortable, where he could be a difference maker, and yet it just hasn't been enough. So when your top players, when your experienced players are not playing at or above their level, you just get a team that's stagnant, that lacks quality, and that's what you've seen out of this Sounders team. There's always that hope that with Pedro back, that with some components back, and maybe Jordan finds it in him and gets off this rut that he's been on, because there's been times where Jordan has been in similar ruts, and when he gets out of there, he shines. Then maybe this Sounders team could be better than it has been. But until then, the quality is still going to be a problem. And although Brian, and I have to praise him on the fact that he's gone out of his way to go against his instinct, his natural thought process of being conservative and being pragmatic. He's came out and admitted that to us, whether it's substitution patterns, whether it's getting certain experienced players off when they need to be, or tactically, you got to praise him for it, because he knows that he's got to make something happen. He understands that this team needs changes, and they just haven't been done. And now he's looking at players that might be able to do that. Injuries are still a problem. Raul was out for this one. Obed Vargas was out for this one. Leo Chu came off with an abductor injury. Whether it's going to be long-term or not, we don't know that. Gabe Mars just coming back. He got a couple of minutes after also dealing with some issues. So there are injuries that are affecting this team as well. We cannot overshadow that. But I think that Brian Metzer knows that something has to give, and he has to give this team enough of what he can to influence their play in order to get out of where they're at.
Question from another one of our A-listers on the Twitch pitch. Michael Valverde says, when I see Gonzo and his temperament, I wonder if his cerebral take on the game translates to motivation for the team. Michael thinks that they lack the Michael Parker-style leader to drive the tactics on the field. What about this aspect to team and manager fit? Michael, first and foremost, what I would say is that we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We can look at a press conference. We can look at how someone has with a microphone in their face, but at the same time, when the mics are away and the cameras are off and we're not allowed to be in a place, do not be surprised if there are other ways to get points across than the 20-second soundbite and saying things a certain way. Niko, your thought?
Yeah, and that's well put. And although we do have insight to certain situations, until you have a Toronto against Bob Bradley situation, all we can do is just speculate and think that everything, as you said, we take the players at their word, right? They say that they believe in Gonzo, they believe in the process, they believe in what can be of this team. And we've seen good moments out of this squad, and we know that they have talent. So until there is some reporting or a whistleblower, if you will, to the point of, there is issues against Gonzo or the current style of play, all we have to do is just take Gonzo and the players at their word. And we haven't heard anything of that nature. And although Gonzalo has a temper, I'm not going to deny that. I think that he, as a head coach, has grown and has developed and evolved into a more balanced coach. And again, he learned a lot of it from Brian, learned a lot of it from his time at Atlanta. And I don't know if that's the issue necessarily, but at this point, all we can do is go with the facts.
Yes. And Abby says he doesn't have a temper. He's passionate. He is passionate. So when it's in all caps, he's definitely a passionate soul.
He is passionate. And you gotta love that passion. I love that about Gonzalo, man. I love the fact that he gives a S. You know what I mean? He's really out there. He feels it. He understands it. You guys got to see it in training, right? I mean, he was a guy that here was running around on the field, making sure the guys understand what was going on. He goes over the same drill over and over again until it gets done right. I mean, the guy cares. The guy, you can't fault the effort, the commitment, the desire from Gonzalo Pineda, whether it's executed on the field or not. That's on the players, on the taxes, whatever it is that may be the combination of things. But I know for a fact, and I'll put my hands on fire for Gonzalo when it comes to his commitment and his desire to get the team right.
All right, time to play cliffhanger. We're moving on. We're moving on to the weekend. What happened has happened. We're moving on to the weekend. And so, of course, the first match out of the blocks involves Gonzalo. And Atlanta continues the road trip. They go to Nashville. Nashville's obviously favored, but it's on the plus side at a plus 110. What's your gut about Nashville, who can be had, and Atlanta United coming to town?
Yeah. I've talked about this Nashville team and their inability to do certain things. Shaq Moore got his first goal in MLS, which was just mind-blowing to me that he just got his first goal. It was kind of running into the ball. The second goal wasn't much better. I think that their offensive tactics and their offensive power might not be enough to put Atlanta on their heels. But I still think that they'll make it difficult. So I think this is going to be a draw. Maybe not what Atlanta fans want out of this game. But I think that Nashville will make it difficult for Atlanta. Thiago came off. That's going to be a problem. You got to change a couple of the things. Hopefully it's not a long-term injury on his calf. But whether it is, whether it's not, changes are probably going to happen for this Nashville team. There will be some rotation. So I think a draw is a fair assessment on this one.
All right. Once again, we'll go through cliffhanger and lay it all out. If there's a match you want to talk about, we'll talk about it. 7:30s and 8:30s. There are a lot of them on Saturday night. Charlotte's hosting LAG. Charlotte is favored at home at a plus 125. FC Cincinnati on the minus side, huge, as all caps comes to town. St. Louis City as an underdog is a plus 345. Messi and friends, possibly without Messi, has to handle Christian Benteke. Inter Miami favored at a minus 161, plus 361 for DC United. The draw is a plus 343.
Ooh, oh man. Wow, those numbers are insane. Man, after seeing DC United struggle like they did, I don't know if I could take them against Inter Miami. That draw seems interesting. Look, Inter Miami has been, outstanding, and they had their struggles against Orlando, but they created a lot of opportunities. DC, on the other hand, they're so inconsistent at times and so, black or white. There's just no gray areas to their play. I don't feel comfortable taking them at all. Well, give me the numbers for LA and Charlotte again.
Charlotte's a plus 125. Galaxy are a plus 194. Draws a plus 266.
And what's the composed on the goals?
All right. So Charlotte and LAG, and we've got some breaking news. So let me get through this here really quickly. 2.5 is a minus 163. 3 is a minus 102. 3.5 is a plus 149.
No, I hate all of that. I would honestly take LA Galaxy in this one. I think they're due for a big win. They've had some struggles. I think you just saw on Wednesday how impactful certain players can be, and especially off the bench. And I continue to have my doubts about some of the cohesiveness that happens, that the changes on cohesiveness whenever you have Paintsel and Peg kind of inverted in this game, as you saw it on Wednesday. I think Fagundes has shown you what he can provide. I think against Charlotte, a team that I feel has overperformed, and I think that's fair. In my opinion, for this season, I think the LA Galaxy can really bring it to them, and I think they'll take this one. So I'll take the LA Galaxy. Don't love the numbers, but I think that's the one out of what you've provided that I would take on the juice boxes. And what's the breaking news?
All right. Well, I have to hit this first. Gary Smith out in Nashville.
Ooh-wee.
Nashville Soccer Club announced today the departure of Gary Smith as the club's first head coach, concluding a 7-season tenure. Witnessed the team reach the playoffs in 6 consecutive seasons in USL Championship and Major League Soccer and the League's Cup 2023 final. Assistant coach Steve Guppy departs the club as part of the change. Nashville says a nice sentence. Former player and current player development coach with Nashville SC, Rumba Muntal, will step up as interim head coach while the club conducts the search for the next head coach. Jarrett joins us with the breaking news. Gary Smith out in Nashville. Niko's still with us. So what do you think,
didn't expect that on the back of a win against Toronto last night. And I know that win wasn't the most convincing. It had some gritty factors to it, but damn, that's
did not have that one after a win.
No, man, this is one that I was it's kind of been in the back of my mind since Leagues Cup last year. They have the run Leagues Cup where they go to the final, they lose to Messi United in penalties, but after Leagues Cup, they just kind of were plotting. They're kind of plotting this year. We had the same question for a while of Hani Mukhtar is the perfect fit for what Gary does, but Hani can't do it forever. Sam Sturridge has been okay in spurts, but not what you paid for. And I don't think you've supplemented that roster the way you needed to, and the academy hasn't turned out players like you need it to if you're not going to be hitting on these big free agent signings. Who is it? Was it Sean Davis they got from Red Bulls in the offseason?
Yeah.
And I was because I was a big fan of that move, and Davis hasn't even seen the field much for them. Don't know what that was about. You have one manager who is out and another one who will be playing against Nashville this week, who is on an almost impossibly hot seat. So
that's the interesting part that they say that once one head rolls, there's more to come. So that's the first one in the chopping block. It is odd in timing. I want to say that there's more behind this because it's not the result that you're firing him for. You're coming from a couple of games ago when Sam Sturridge had a hat trick and you beat Montreal and it seemed like all was well. In a team that, like you mentioned, was not revamped, was not replenished with talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Toronto's not an easy team. You would say what you want about Toronto, but they've had something to their play, right? I mean, they had the problems against New York City FC and the fight and whatever it is that happened all down there. But they've been a good team overall, difficult team to play. So the fact that you win 2-0, it can be about this result. So I want to say that there's more to come. And whether it is Gary's side or whether it's on the ownership side, but there's more to the story. I'm not buying it.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on the juice boxes as they go after this continues. But yeah, Nashville is favored on the plus side. The line has started to slide back toward even money, and like I said, this just broke, so it literally is the slide has started back toward even money. But we'll keep an eye on juice boxes. There's a lot of other matchups out there, Niko. I want to skip to Seattle and Vancouver. Seattle's a minus 118. Draws a plus 267, and Vancouver's a plus 305.
Whew, man, that this is a tough one. This is one that I am going to be leaning towards the draw. Look, there's no doubt in my mind that Seattle could win this game, and the way Brian rotated, it seemed like his number one priority was making sure that Cascadia rivalry was going to come with his best players. Raul Diaz had a minor injury that kept him away from this Wednesday game. I think it was called turf toe, what he kind of called it. But he said that he expects Raul to start. So that's good for Seattle. Can Jordan Morris find it? Can Albert shine in this one? JP has not looked 100%. He's looked about 70, 75, but he is the one and only play that you got. The only player, the pedigree in the center of the field that can do what he does. So I expect him to come out and play good at home in this one. But Vancouver's dangerous. Vancouver had made it difficult for Seattle before at home. I think Brian White yesterday could have made the difference, and he didn't. He's going to want to come into this one with a big chip on his shoulder. So because of that, I see this as a 1-1 draw. And what's the money on the draw again?
All right, so the money on the draw, a plus 267 involving Seattle.
Boy, I'm taking that. I'm locking it down. I feel like that's what it's the most foreseeable thing when you look at both of these squads and what they've provided here up on this Wednesday.
All right, so total 2.5 a minus 119, 3 is a plus 145, 3.5 over under a plus 203. Does that shake you any?
No, I still think it's going to be a low scoring game. As much as I would like to say that it would be more than that, I think that Vancouver, with their ability to transition and to put the fear of God in certain way for a Seattle Sounders team that knows that they need the points, you're not going to see a full out, we're just going to get out here and leave it all on the offensive end. I think Brian's going to be careful with how he plays this one. Hopefully, Christian seems like he found some confidence after that goal in Portland. But again, I just feel like this game, rivalry game, derbies are played different physically. I think this is going to be a draw.
All right. What's going on Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports?
All right, Soccer Bar, we're going to get into absolutely all of this. We are going to talk a little bit about the Sounder squad, what's kind of going on with them, how Brian Smetzer has either done wrong or right, but rotating as many players as he did, 6 substitutions, a lot of them Defiance and Academy players. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll talk about some injuries. We'll also talk a little bit about the East, who could win it. Inter Miami, that draw against Orlando was Orlando's 3-2 win over Philadelphia, just a fluke. Muriel finally finds first goal in MLS, then gets a second. Can he provide more? We'll talk about all of that in Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports. Not till tomorrow you'll have new stuff because players are off for the Seattle Sounders. But at Pulso Sports, you'll probably find this segment as well, by the way. We do try to redo that for some of our fans that really love you, John, love everything you guys do. They're following SDH. And on Friday, we'll have conversations with Brian Smetzer, what's ahead in terms to this Vancouver game.
All right, my friend. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for handling the breaking news, and thanks for going through Cliffhanger. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend. Deep breaths. We're in a bit of schedule compression, so we've got to manage everything. We got to make sure that we're okay. You're on Copa Dos when it comes to the mug.
That's right.
we just have to manage. We got to make sure that we get through the schedule, this rough patch. We got to make sure that the physio has all the info that they need. And we'll catch up with you soon, my friend. Thanks for dropping by.
Have a good one. Thank you.